few things at one time, which never worked really well. I was reading. I welcome you all to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Pottstown. We are a free and liberal religious community and religion. You know, the democratic process guides how we function with each other, how we have our own laws. We are part of the Unitarian Universalist Association, which is out of Boston, but they are benign leaders, and we control what we do and how we function. We function as a liberal, welcoming community. We don't care what your religious background is, your sexual orientation or gender identity. We welcome everybody, regardless of your past spiritual beliefs. And we hope you will find new spiritual beliefs or have found them within the midst of this fellowship. So, with that having been said, do we have any announcements with regard to the fellowship? If we move, please come up to the microphone so we know that here, and feel free to say what you said.
I am Kenny. I have a card here for Dave Donahue and all the people that have known him. He's quite the character. I'm going to be sending it to him in Jersey, Cape May, New Jersey, he lives now. So he was in a kitchen fire, and I think a lot of his hair and his face got burned. So he was in a burn unit for maybe a week. And he's at home now, so we just want to send him well wishes. Anybody that knew him, I have a card, and if you could just sign the card. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Monica. First of all, there's so many people. We have almost every seat filled. So thank you so much everybody for coming today. It's awesome. I just wanted to make a quick announcement. The holidays are coming up, so you'll be gift giving and things. So we have UUMP gear. You can just log in here and we get, it's a fundraiser for us. So we get money that comes back to the fellowship. So there's going to be, these are, I think there's 2 signs. This one's from the one table out there, but if you would like to support us, please consider buying something cool. We also wear these to our protests that we go to, so FYI. And I'd also like to thank Diane. She got us a pride flag, finally. Yay! Just like John said, you're a welcoming community, so we're gonna hang this up probably starting next week. I just have to get a poll. So thank you, Diane. Thanks.
Good morning, I'm Sam. As we all know, we've changed up cleaning services. Starting the first week of December, the new cleaning service will start. It'll be every other week that they come in and clean. So I will be putting a sign-up sheet up on the bulletin board out here for the opposite weeks that need cleaning. It's not a lot of cleaning. We're not talking get in here and dust mop and all this stuff. It's going to be basically making sure the bathrooms and the toilets are clean. I stock the toilet paper and paper towels every week, so that part doesn't need to be done. Probably just a light dust mop or sweeping of the main entrance. And that's really about all that really needs to be done on the opposite weeks from when the cleaning service does. So I'll get that posted up this Friday when I come in to do the first opposite weeks of cleaning. Okay, so if you have any questions about it, come see me. I'm happy to help you. Thank you.
Big announcement, I cook too much food. And if anybody would like to come help me eat food on Thanksgiving because they don't wish to cook food or don't have another place to go, please just let me know. Talk to me after the service, but we certainly have just so much more food than we could ever possibly eat, and your community and company would be a blessing. So please think about joining me if you'd like to come somewhere for Thanksgiving.
Any announcements? Okay, with that, I will turn the service over to Valery Murdock, who will enlighten us about some of the early roots that we can remember.
I'm still here. All right. Good morning. So pleased to see so many people here today. So our opening words today are a poem by Joy Harjo. Is anyone familiar with Joy Harjo? One? Okay. Joy is a Native American poet from Oklahoma. She's a member of the Creek Nation, and she was recently the Poet Laureate of the United States from 2019 to 2022. This poem is called Once the World Was Perfect. Once the world was perfect, and we were happy in that world. Then we took it for granted. Discontent began a small rumble in the earthly mind. Then doubt pushed through with its spiked head. And once doubt ruptured the web, all manner of demon thoughts jumped through. We destroyed the world we had been given for inspiration, for life. Each stone of jealousy, each stone of fear, greed, envy, and hatred put out the light. No one was without a stone in his or her hand. There we were, right back where we had started. We were bumping into each other in the dark. And now we had no place to live, since we didn't know how to live with each other. Then one of the stumbling ones took pity on another and shared a blanket. A spark of kindness made a light. The light made an opening in the darkness. Everyone worked together to make a ladder. A Wind Clan person climbed out first into the next world, and then the other clans, the children of those clans, their children, and their children, all the way through time to now, into this morning light for you. And now we will do our chimes so that we can settle into our Sunday together. Feel free to put your phone in worship mode if you have not already. Our chalice lighting words today are from Leslie Cole Cosbell. Oliver, you have chalice? Flame of fire, spark of the universe that warmed our ancestral heart, agent of life and death, symbol of truth and freedom. We strive to understand ourselves and our earthly home. Wow. And now I invite you to join me in singing hymn number 69 in the great hymnal. Give thanks. Please rise and body or spirit as you are able. And now, for our time for all ages, we have a real treat for you. Our Embers and Flames Acting Guild have prepared a play called Tisquantum Squash. So I invite my narrators to come up to the stage, their microphones, and we will get set up to go. Come on up, you guys.
Wait, first. Oh.
You've probably heard of the Pilgrims. They had a terrible first winter in Plymouth. It was bitter cold.
They were weak for 3 months at sea. Many became sick and about half the number died. 51 to be exact. But they didn't give up when things got hard.
They worked hard and prayed.
One day, the men were moving when they heard a shout. Indians coming! This must have been Indians.
Excuse me, just a moment.
Just why we passed on in here now.
Welcome! Everyone was stunned because he spoke English.
One pilgrim man answered. Welcome. I am Samoset, a visiting chief from the along the drive. What can you tell us about the Indians around here? This is the pestilence. They hated the weapon. They would squash the weapon and bug between their feet. Oh no. Keep that in mind. Nearly, there is a mysterious plague showed up 4 years ago. Whole tribe died, except for Wampanoag. He was kidnapped as a slave, but he returned a few months ago to his empty village. He listens to people. I will bring him next time. He too speaks English. We will welcome him also. Samoset told stories until it was dark, then informed the pilgrims. I was sleeping that.
Captain Standish was not thrilled with the idea. How did he know they could trust Samoset? He thought to himself.
The people want us to bed. In the morning, Samoset left with gifts for his chief friend, Massasoit, a knife, a bracelet, and a ring.
I wonder when we'll see him again.
Maybe when he brings Tisquantum. The next Thursday, Tisquantum returned with his friend.
Welcome, Englishmen. Do not be afraid of Chief Massasoit and his 60 warriors. I expect you will have a peace treaty soon. The chief Samoset interpreting. A peace treaty was agreed upon and eventually lasted 40 years. But when Chief Massasoit and his warriors left after the agreement, one man stayed.
Tisquantum. He didn't give up because it was hard with his people gone. He saw the pilgrims needed his help to survive.
I will teach you how to catch eels. First, you squash the eels out of the water, prepare to be, then you catch them with your hands. Then you wash them and cook them. The pilgrims followed the directions and thought,
That is me. Excellent. Eat it.
I'll also teach you how the right way to have a very fortified thermals and we will fish.
All right. Right to fish.
To enrich the soil. But remember, we've already get the water for 2 weeks, otherwise they'll still go fish.
Tisquantum, that is Tisquantum, helped every way he could, teaching the pilgrims how to stalk deer, make maple syrup from sap, and plant pumpkins along the corn. We saw the pumpkins planted with the corn squad to squad. Pumpkins with ears.
I will teach you how to find herbs for food and medicine.
So he did. He also taught the pilgrims how to hunt beaver in order to trade for pelts.
Everybody too, and super for you is great for the other tribes.
Oh wait, Squanto. He's more than a mermaid. He's a superhero.
And so the pilgrims were bursting with thankfulness, not only to God for the abundance of food they now had,
But also for their new superhero. Friend that God used to help them preserve.
is found home. I'm
My friend. The end.
Yeah, the traditional people things, maybe that's what I'm saying, everything you wear, heels for Thanksgiving. What? Heels, yes, actually.
So, my first thought is I will pass up heels. Second thought is it is time for our offertory. As Reverend Dave used to say many years ago, we live on three things, which is time, talent, and the third is what we call treasure, which was a nice term for an offertory. Where if you have any free capital or cash, you can have your pledge available for you in some fashion. We'll pass the baskets and we thank you for your kindness and generosity.
Kids worked for several weeks on these props and costumes. They really enjoyed it. Still makes me smooth. Thank you. Thank you so much for your generosity. So. When most of us here were school children, we learned a cute, heartwarming, friendly Thanksgiving story. Pilgrims in tall hats landing on Plymouth Rock, meeting friendly Indians, sharing a peaceful feast, and beginning a long tradition of gratitude. It's a story meant to bring people together, but as with many stories simplified for children, the real history is far more complicated, far more human, and I believe far more meaningful. To begin with, the Mayflower did not arrive in a wilderness untouched. In fact, a wilderness untouched by Europeans. In fact, for almost a century before 1620, coastal indigenous people had already been trading and sometimes clashing with European fishermen and explorers. This long contact meant that some native people, like Samoset, who you saw in the play, learned bits of English and or French. It also meant that they encountered something far more devastating, disease. Most of us know about the smallpox, but it was far from the only disease the Europeans brought. Measles, mumps, flu, chickenpox, typhoid fever, scarlet fever, and the native populations had zero immunity to any of them. It was unintended, but inevitable. By the early 17th century, European pathogens had swept through New England, killing as much as 90% of the indigenous population of that time, possibly more. Entire villages were lost. The Wampanoag people, living primarily in what is now southeastern Massachusetts, were hit catastrophically. The explorers and settlers who witnessed this devastation tended to view it as providential, a sign from God of their right to be there, something their descendants would later refer to as manifest destiny. To understand the immediate events leading up to the first Thanksgiving, we have to understand the extraordinary, tragic life of Tisquantum. Tisquantum, more commonly known in our stories now as Squanto, was from Patuxent, a coastal village within the Wampanoag Federation. In 1614, so about 5 years before our Thanksgiving story, he was kidnapped by an English slaver, thrown on a ship, and taken across the Atlantic. He was put up for sale in Malaga, Spain. Accounts differ a bit on what happened next, but he and a few other captives were purchased or possibly ransomed by a group of Franciscan friars who preferred to educate and convert native people rather than keep them enslaved. It was in Europe that Tisquantum learned English and was exposed to Christianity. After a few years, he found a way to travel to England, and from there to arrange passage back across that wide ocean to his homeland. He finally returned in 1619, only to find out that his entire village, his entire community, had been killed from the epidemic. Patuxent was completely empty. He had to seek refuge with other Wampanoag groups, and it was then that he met Massasoit, the chief of the Wampanoag at that time. Meanwhile, a neighboring tribe, the Narragansett, they are to the west of the Wampanoag in what we now call Rhode Island, they had been less affected by the epidemic. With their population largely intact, they saw a ripe opportunity to expand into Wampanoag territory. This imbalance set the stage for every political calculation that would come after. When the Mayflower arrived in late December 1620, the English settlers were in desperate shape. They had endured a miserable crossing with 5 dying at sea and arrived far north of their intended destination. They in fact arrived at the ruined village of Patuxent. They built their settlement there, and another 45 people died in the brutal winter that followed. They were buried together at Coles Hill, part of the original settlement that is now a waterfront memorial park in downtown Plymouth. I have never been to Plymouth, but in my research to do all of this, I am now very interested in visiting Coles Hill. After that winter, by the spring, by March 1621, the survivors, including Captain Standish, who was also in our play today, met 2 native men. Samoset, who was not Wampanoag, he was a visiting Iroquois chief. He was able to greet them in English, and Tisquantum, who would soon become a cultural and linguistic bridge. It is tempting in our stories to cast Tisquantum as a selfless god. Truth, as usual, is more complicated. The Wampanoag, led by Massasoit, saw these English settlers as a potential ally against the Narragansett, who had threatened their vulnerable and depopulated communities. Tisquantum, for his part, helped negotiate an arrangement. The English would share their weapons in exchange for peace and cooperation. The Pilgrims, already struggling to survive, agreed to this. The feast that we remember today happened months later, not at that first meeting. That first meeting was in March. So months later, in the fall of 1621, after they had had a successful summer, successful harvest, the English had used all the agricultural knowledge that Tisquantum had taught them through the spring and summer, how to plant corn with fish fertilizer, how to locate eels and shellfish, and how to adapt to a new land. Many people don't know that the Wampanoag might not have even been invited to this feast to begin with. According to some accounts, they heard celebratory gunfire going off from the English settlement. They came to investigate to see if there was, a fight going on. They discovered it was not an attack, and they chose to join in. They went out, hunted, and brought 5 deer to share, and then remained for a multi-day feast. Tisquantum remained a valuable translator and a go-between, but there were rumors that he may have exaggerated each side's intentions and abilities to the other, stoking tensions deliberately to increase his own importance as a trusted negotiator. At one point, in reaction to these suspicions, Massasoit demanded the English turn him over to the Wampanoag for judgment. He was unsuccessful, Massasoit was unsuccessful, and Tisquantum remained with the English in Plymouth. But he died only a year after that first feast, in the fall of 1622. While most accounts attribute it to disease, the same diseases that had wiped out his village, There is some speculation among historical scholars that it might have actually been poisoned. Despite these early difficulties, Massasoit honored his peace agreement with the English for the rest of his life, warning them of threats and maintaining an alliance despite enormous pressures. A statue of Massasoit was erected on Coles Hill in 1921 to celebrate the tricentennial of the first meeting. And even though Indigenous Americans continued and still continue to suffer great losses in the centuries since Massasoit made that first treaty, he is still viewed as a wise and compassionate leader by the Wampanoag today. So now, over 400 years later, what do Native Americans really think of Thanksgiving? This was a subject that I wanted to treat with great care. I have zero Native American ancestry, but this subject is incredibly important to me. It's my personal sense of justice wanted to learn more about this and share this. For many Native people today, the US Thanksgiving holiday is not a celebration. In 1970, the United American Indians of New England established a National Day of Mourning on Coles Hill. There is a plaque installed there now, just a few feet from the statue of Massasoit, that reads, "Since 1970, Native Americans have gathered at noon on Coles Hill in Plymouth to commemorate a National Day of Mourning on the US Thanksgiving holiday. Many Native Americans do not celebrate the arrival of pilgrims and other European settlers. To them, Thanksgiving Day is a reminder of the genocide of millions of people, the theft of their lands, and the relentless assault on their cultures. Participants in National Day of Mourning honor Native ancestors and the struggle of Native peoples to survive today. It is a day of remembrance and spiritual connection, as well as a protest of the racism and oppression which Native Americans continue to experience." This is part of our national history too. It's one that deserves space alongside the Pilgrim narrative. But it's important to remember that Native peoples have also had their own rich traditions of Thanksgiving, traditions thousands of years older than 1621. Anita Peters, a Wampanoag elder who is known as Mother Bear, says, "When I was young, we were taught by our grandparents and great-grandparents to believe that the purpose of life is to be in a state of Thanksgiving every day. For many tribes, gratitude is not a single day, but a continuous practice rooted in their relationship to the land. For example, in the spring, the first strawberries of the year and the return of the herring to the streams marks the is a time of renewal and life returning. In the fall, they celebrate Cranberry Day, which is actually multiple days. This is specific to Martha's Vineyard. There are Wampanoag that currently live on Martha's Vineyard. And Cranberry Day marks the end of the harvest season with feasting and singing and bonfires and community. There is also a prayer known as the Iroquois Thanksgiving Address. The Iroquois are also native to the New England area, further north, I believe. I'm not going to read it in its entirety because it is quite long, but this Thanksgiving address takes the time to specifically and individually thank or express gratitude for so many things in their lives. Things like each other, the earth mother, waters, fish, plants, food plants, medicinal herbs, animals, trees, birds, the four winds, the sun, the moon, the stars, their ancestral teachers, and the creator, the great spirit. Stephen Peters, a cousin of Anita Peters, Mother Bear, and spokesperson for the Wampanoag tribe, was once asked how he feels about modern Thanksgiving traditions. He said, "I think it's great. My ancestors had harvest festivals throughout the year, gathering with family, enjoying our company, sharing our blessings, and giving thanks for all that we have is a good thing. I say have more Thanksgiving events throughout the year. I also ask that you take a moment in that day to remember what happened to my people and the history as it was recorded, and not the narrative that we have been given in history books." Native Thanksgiving traditions remind us that gratitude is not passive. It's a deliberate, relational practice, something that we do. It asks us to pay attention to the interconnected web of existence that we hold sacred. When we live gratefully, we actively notice the way that we are supported by people we may never meet, by ecosystems that sustain us, and by daily graces that could so easily be overlooked. When we acknowledge and give thanks for these things, gratitude becomes a form of ethical engagement. We are called to respond to life's gifts with care and responsibility, to live attentively is to resist taking anything or anyone for granted. So this Thanksgiving, I invite us to hold two truths together. Yes, by all means, give thanks for family, for food, for community, for the blessings in your life. That is a beautiful and human practice, and there is nothing wrong with celebrating it. But I also ask that we make room for the fuller story, for the people who were here first, for the losses they endured, for their resilience, their ongoing presence, and for their traditions of gratitude that long, long predate our holiday. Understanding this history doesn't diminish Thanksgiving, it enriches it. It helps us practice gratitude with clearer eyes, fuller heart, and a deeper sense of connection to the past and to each other. The Iroquois Thanksgiving address closes with these words. We have now arrived at the place where we end our words. Of all the things we have named, it was not our intention to leave anything out. If something was forgotten, we leave it to each individual to send such greetings and thanks in their own way. Now our minds are one. Let it be so. Happy Thanksgiving. Oh, there it is. Now, I invite you to join me in singing our closing hymn, number 128, For All That Is Our Life. Sorry.
Now is that time in our service, one of our honored and revered traditions in our faith, that we share joys and concerns. We share those events of life which are joyful to us, and we want to share that joy with the community as a whole to bring joy to everybody tangentially. We share those events of life which are sorrowful and sad, and seek compassion and support from our community of which we are a part.
Push this way, but not the light of wisdom, but part of the community, where the fire of commitment. These be our very hearts and our hands until we are together again.
Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. I was surprised myself. I thought my speech was a little longer than that. But now you get to go enjoy some drinks and coffee.
Yeah, society.